In my brain, you have to do it. Oh, Kurt, please, I always grab the baby penguin and throw it off a ledge. Who do you think I am? But listen, that's beyond the point. What we're talking about here is feeling small in relation to the universe by trying to save Princess Peach from devastation.
That's so true.
And I think that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful, Kurt.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unbelievable. I am gaming legend Kurt Danner, joined here by biblically accurate Luis Mejia, who bids you be not afraid. And we have been having a lot of fun with some guest hosts recently, but today it's back to our regularly scheduled programming, which means I will be telling two unbelievable stories from history, one of them true, one of them false to Luis.
And it's up to me to figure out which is which.
And there is a lot of excitement in the air today, Luis, because this is season 3. You gave me a pretty good beating in season 1. I returned the favor pretty well in season 2, so This is a bit of a tiebreaker season. I'm at least expecting the competitiveness to be turned up.
I hope so, Kurt. I think last time one of us began to throw the towel. I'm not going to name names, but it begins with L and ends with Luis. But I did kind of slack towards the end there, and I'm not feeling like that's going to happen this season. I'm confident in my own abilities, which frankly does not happen often.
Wow, big talk. Well, the slate is wiped clean. We are 0-0 on the scoreboard.
Ooh-hoo-wee.
I've honestly been so excited to get to this. I don't want to waste any more time. First thing is first, Luis, do you have a fast fact to get us started that may be true, may be false?
Boy, do I, Kurt. Get ready for a quick little fact. So the U.S. Senator that initially introduced the laws and restrictions when it comes to building park benches to make them as uncomfortable as possible for homeless people has tragically passed away last week. Now, as a twist of cruel irony, there are at least 3 counties in the United States that are trying to honor his memory by building a bench, named after him, of course. True or false, Kurt?
Is it going to be like a nice looking bench, or is it going to have some weird hand railings on it? Are they going to homeless proof the benches?
That is yet to be confirmed, but that we're yet to see if these benches become hostile to homeless people.
Well, this is so specific. I think I got to go with true, because if I went with false and it was true, I'd really look like an idiot. So I'm going with true. I think this is correct. It's pretty believable too from, U.S. Senator.
Yeah, that's very fair. Well, no, Kurt, that is false. That is a lie that I've made up for this evening. And to be frank, Kurt, I don't know if this bodes too well for you, if this is how we're starting off this season.
You know what? I respect you coming out swinging.
Thank you.
I really
Kurt.
do.
Thank you. Someone has to.
That was a real gut punch. All right, let's keep it rolling on that energy. Let's do it.
Let's hear your stories, Kurt.
Yes. Now, before we get to it, Luis, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you believe in miracles? And when I say miracles, I mean, is it possible for something to happen that's so statistically improbable that the only conclusion you can draw is that it must have been done by a higher power or the universe or fate or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, just look at you and me becoming friends. Who would have thought that had to happen? Let alone become roommates, let alone start a podcast. I don't know, Kurt. I feel like only divine intervention can let that happen.
That is true. I think you're saying that jokingly, but we have often said that it's odd that, when we were both 5 years old, we were in such different places and positions in our lives that, like, what are the odds we would end up living in the same apartment together? So I guess that is a good point. So you're saying yes?
Well, that was mostly what we in the business call a joke, Kurt, because
that's crazy.
being honest with you, I'm not the biggest believer in miracles. I just think things happen, and that's pretty exciting.
Okay, well, maybe this will change your mind today, Luis. We'll see.
No.
But the 2 miracles that I'm going to be telling you about today, both of them take place in a very dark place and time, as all the best miracles do. So I'm going to give you a choice of which one you want to hear first, based on setting, okay?
Okay.
One of our miracles takes place in a battle during the bloodiest height of the American Civil War.
Okay.
And our other miracle takes place in an equally dark location, in early 2010's Mario 64 speedrun live stream.
Oh, all right. Well, let's leave the best for last, Kurt. Let's go with Civil War first.
Okay, we're starting with the American Civil War. All right. So in April 1861, the American Civil War started, and you probably would have guessed this, Luis, but life as a soldier really sucked.
Generally.
But let me give you a little background about just exactly how much and specifically it sucked. Enemy soldiers, interestingly, were probably the least of a soldier's worry in the Civil War. They had a lot of things that were more pressing problems to them. The first thing that was a big problem was that there were much much better guns than what American soldiers were used to. So during the Revolutionary War, which was kind of the last major conflict the U.S. would have been involved in, guns were only accurate for about 50 yards. Now, by the Civil War, most guns would be accurate for about 500 yards.
Got it.
And also newer guns could reload much faster. So during the Revolutionary War, if you charged an enemy trench, you had a pretty reasonable chance of success. The newer guns in the Civil War made it so charging a trench was pretty much certain death.
Interesting.
But generals were pretty slow to update their strategies, so numerous charges were still attempted, all of them resulting in complete massacre.
Wait, Kurt, hold on, real quick. The second biggest conflict, I guess you mean the second biggest conflict in American soil. Let's not forget 1847, when the Americans went to Mexico and attacked. I don't know how modern the guns were at that point, but let's just say more modern than Mexico's for sure.
That's true. And you actually are correct. That was the most recent conflict before this, which I only happen to know because there's a point about the Mexican-American War later. So hang on to your Mexican-American War knowledge, Luis. This one's for you.
Giving y'all a little Mexico teaser from the beginning. You're welcome, everyone.
One fun little story about generals being slow to adapt to these newer guns. During the Battle of Spotsylvania Courthouse, Union General John Sedgwick scolded his men for trying to dodge bullets incoming from sharpshooters from a distant tree line. He said, quote, "I am ashamed of you dodging that way. They couldn't hit an elephant at this distance." Moments later, a bullet fired from over 500 yards away struck him in the head, killing him instantly.
Fantastic. Yes.
Now, kind of related to the guns here, there was a new popular bullet called the Minet ball, invented by French officer Claude Etienne Minet in 1849. The Minet ball was made of soft lead and slower than most bullets, so when a Minet ball hits a person, it flattens, causing bone to shatter, and the ball would carry fragments of skin, clothing, and bacteria with it into the wound. It also usually didn't have enough force to go all the way through and exit, so it would be stuck in the person's body. Getting shot in the head, neck, or chest meant you had 50-50 odds of dying. Doctors usually wouldn't attempt surgery on these wounds because opening someone up to repair organs or try to stop bleeding at this point in time would almost certainly kill them.
Right.
Now, if you managed to get shot in the arm or leg instead, you were on track for the most popular surgery of the time, which was amputation.
Yes. Chop that arm off.
Yeah. A little off the top, baby. Come on.
Ooh. Instant weight loss.
On average, approximately 60% of soldiers managed to survive amputation. Amputations would last between 2 and 10 minutes, and actually, contrary to popular belief, anesthesia and chloroform were regularly used to numb the pain during operations, so they did have some amount of painkiller. Now, despite all this, the worst killer was germs, because at this point in time, there's no concept of germs or antibiotics. Doctors would reuse the same tools for amputations without cleaning them. They would either wipe their hands on their clothes or rinse them in a communal bucket of water.
Right on.
So post-operative infection was pretty common. Doctors and soldiers also regularly made homemade elixirs and concoctions, literally based on things that they just found around to treat their illnesses. So this, of course, led to a lot more infection.
Nice.
And because of the lack of understanding of germs, encampments were also pretty rampant with disease. Soldier hygiene was basically non-existent. Some soldiers from large cities may have been given an early version of the smallpox vaccine, but most weren't, so most soldiers are completely unvaccinated. The food would be generally spoiled, undercooked, and severely lacking in vitamin C, leading to scurvy. You know, that's always a classic, little scurvy in the mix.
Kurt, I think you're just describing what our apartment looked like whenever we lived together, if I'm being honest.
Whoa.
You know, smelling kind of weird, some random infections here or there. For a brief period of time, unvaccinated until the vaccine was available.
That's true.
And the likelihood of potential scurvy due to our poor diets. These are all things that happened when we lived together, Kurt.
That is true. Okay. Well, I hate to say the next thing I was going to say was that latrines were either not used or drained directly into the drinking water supply. And Luis, if that's the case when we live together, don't tell me. I don't want to know.
What do you think we had to replace our Brita filter every week and a half?
Oh.
Just kidding, everyone. We didn't do any of that. Well, not the latrine part.
Now, lastly, foot traffic and tents blocking sunlight led to camps pretty immediately being a wet and muddy mess. And also keep in mind in this time, soldiers are sleeping on the ground. So there's a lot of disease running around here. Disease, in fact, was so deadly that twice as many soldiers died from disease as they did from combat wounds in the Civil War. Oof. You may think this is a pretty bad number, but this was actually a large improvement on the previous disease combat ratios.
Okay.
So as I said, the most recent conflict before this was the Mexican-American War.
Woo.
In that conflict, 7 out of every 10 soldiers died from diseases.
Weak.
It would not, in fact, be until World War II that American soldiers would successfully die more frequently from combat wounds than from disease.
Interesting.
But all that to say, all the classic malicious diseases are pretty much having their run of the place in these camps. Tuberculosis, malaria, measles, rheumatism, typhoid, and yellow fever are just spreading basically unchecked.
The big hitters, the big boys.
All the favorites, you know. Now we come to the Battle of Shiloh, April 1862, so it's a year into the war. Union troops led by General Ulysses Grant gathered near Shiloh, Tennessee, preparing for an attack on Mississippi. Now, at the same time, Confederate General Albert Johnston had gathered his troops in Corinth, Mississippi, and on April 6th, Confederate troops launched a surprise attack on the Union troops in Shiloh. General Grant was forced to pull the Union troops back to the Tennessee River, where they held their position, and then that night, an additional 20,000 Union troops arrived to reinforce Grant troops. So the next day, the Union Army was then able to force the Confederate troops into retreat, but the victory was very costly and a combined over 20,000 casualties to both sides.
Yikes.
Now, during the night of April 7th, all these wounded soldiers are still laying in the muddy battlefield waiting to be rescued. Quick note, how much it sucked to be a Civil War soldier. During the early years of the Civil War, wounded soldiers would be transported from the front lines to hospitals by civilians carrying stretchers or driving ambulances, and they had a massive problem with these civilians showing up, getting one look at the chaos, and then immediately fleeing. And also, if they left an ambulance behind in their haste, sometimes soldiers would steal it to flee themselves.
Oh,
so
nice.
Not only did they not really have any medical transportation, it also was actively helping soldiers desert.
Listen, I mean, if anything, I think they're doing a great service to their nation, if you ask me. they're providing people the opportunity to not do this.
Yeah. So at this point in time, 1862, it's kind of before they fixed this problem, so they really don't have any great medical transport. So there's mostly all of the wounded soldiers are still laying on the battlefield during the night. Now, during the night, some of the soldiers noticed that their wounds started to glow a strange greenish blue light.
Oh.
And then the next morning, the doctors noticed that the soldiers who reported their wounds had been glowing seemed to be healing faster.
Whoa.
And they were significantly less likely to contract an infection. So the story of this spreads that the soldiers of the Battle of Shiloh had their wounds touched by angels to aid in their survival or something to that effect. And this becomes known as the legend of the Angel's Glow. This is, a cool story, but also like the Civil War is going on and people are kind of preoccupied with that. So, life goes on.
Right, yeah.
And this story kind of hovered somewhere in between myth and fact for the next 140 years until October 2001.
Oh, no.
17-year-old high schooler named Bill Martin was hiking near the Shiloh battlefield with his friend Jonathan Curtis. So after the Civil War, the Shiloh battlefield was made into a national military park. Around 5 o'clock, Bill lost his footing and tumbled down a steep incline, severely breaking his leg, and Bill was unable to walk, so Jonathan left to get help. Jonathan returned with some park rangers a few hours later, but about 30 minutes before Jonathan and the rangers arrived, Bill noticed the fresh wounds on his leg glowing a faint pale blue color. Bill assumed that he was delirious from either the blood loss or the shock, but then after being rushed to the hospital, Bill mentioned that his cuts had looked like they were glowing, and one of the park rangers who had stayed at the hospital immediately recognized it as the same phenomenon reported during the Battle of Shiloh.
Whoa.
By great coincidence, Bill's mother, Phyllis, was a microbiologist, so she encouraged him to keep himself occupied during his recovery by trying to find what the cause of these glowing wounds were. And Bill's findings would eventually answer the 140-year-old question of what exactly had happened at the Battle of Shiloh. So this is what he ultimately found.
It was angels.
It was angels. Case closed.
Yeah, case closed.
Okay, here's the verse right here. No, what he found was in the soil around the Shiloh battlefield was this bacteria called Photor habitus luminescens. I'm going to call it P. luminescens from now on for ease, okay?
Yeah.
And this is a bacteria that lives in the gut of nematodes. Nematodes are these tiny little worm-like creatures that will infect insect larvae. So these nematodes get into the insect larva, then they vomit up the P. luminescens that grows in their gut, and it gets into the bloodstream of the insect. The P. luminescens then produces toxins that quickly kill the insect and then secrete enzymes that convert the insect's body into nutrients that can be consumed both by the nematode and the bacteria to reproduce.
That's hardcore.
And as you may have guessed by its name, P. luminescens glows a faint pale bluish color.
Yeah.
One little note here is that the human body temperature is generally a little too warm for P. luminescens to survive. Bill theorized that laying on the battlefield all night had likely lowered the soldier's body temperature enough for the bacteria to survive.
Right.
And Bill also had minor hypothermia when he was admitted to the hospital. But the kind of big reveal here is that since the toxins released by P. luminescens kill other microorganisms and bacteria, it essentially sterilized the wound. I guess you still have that bacteria in there, but at least it got rid of everything else. So it was like this sort of weird, lucky, natural antibiotic that also happened to glow for these Civil War soldiers and Bill.
Wait, hold on. But I feel like now it's probably counterproductive for these bacteria to close up your wounds if you've been shot at, right? Isn't it easier to dig out a bullet if if the wound is still open? You're just sealing the entry.
Keep in mind, they're not going in for the bullet, because if you get shot in the head or torso, they're not going to try to get it at all, because you die from the surgery anyway. If you got shot in the arm or the leg, they're just going to amputate it. So
in that case, if they're just going to amputate your arm, then okay, what's the big deal with the wounds closing up? That's all I'm saying.
Well, it's, at least you're not getting an infection, because like whatever the Manet ball carried in there, or whatever bacteria has gotten into your wounds from the mud.
Whatever. You are telling me that they're tiny little animals living in me? No, Kurt. I am the animal, and I'm big.
Well, I don't think the nematodes are always there. They're just like in the soil, and then we're in the insect larva, and the insects are crawling on these guys laying on the ground, and that is how the bacteria spreads into their wounds.
This is the podcast where we find out that Luis does not believe in germ theory. It's like an enemy of the people situation. It's like, no way, guys. It's an angel.
You also don't believe in miracles, so you're not buying into the angel's glow. So what do you think happened then, Luis? If it wasn't germs and it wasn't angels, then what's behind door number 3?
That's not up to me to answer, Kurt. There are things beyond me, and this is one of them.
Behind door number 3, where am I? This isn't my body.
Behind door number 3 is ignorance is bliss, and I'm okay being blissful today.
So true. So true. So, Luis, that is miracle number 1. Now we're on to miracle number 2. What did you think of the first one? Has that got you believing any more in miracles, or are you still a man of, I guess not science, because we threw out the germ theory, so a man of...
a man of my own principles. If anything, what is a man? What has he got if he doesn't have just a little bit of principles?
A man whose goals you could not possibly comprehend.
Exactly. My goal is to fly as near to the sun as I can without melting my wings. Now, I like that, Kurt. I enjoyed that. I'm a big fan of people just finding out that maybe very miraculous things really aren't. But, it left me, frankly, a little underwhelmed. I don't know why, Kurt.
Okay.
I feel like this man dedicated his life to figuring out whether this was a germ or not, and he did, and that's it. And I don't know, Kurt. Since we haven't used P luminescence as a way to treat injuries to this day, I don't think we've achieved much. So that's all I'm going to say.
That's true. And, I think you are making, a good point that I was talking about in the beginning, things that are so statistically improbable that it seems like they shouldn't happen. This is more like maybe a case of just right place, right time, and then a very weird mystery being solved. But okay, this time, I promise, we're getting extremely statistically improbable, all right?
You're going to make me believe in miracles, Kurt? Is this what I'm hearing?
Maybe so. Just maybe, Luis. Okay? Here we go.
Shaking.
1996. Nintendo releases their new game, Super Mario 64, for their console, the Nintendo 64.
Nice.
In this game, you play as Mario, exploring different 3D worlds and castles, looking for hidden stars. And this game was extremely popular worldwide, so much so that if you have any relationship with video games, you've probably seen this game at some point, or maybe even played it yourself.
Even if you don't have a relationship to video games, Kurt, I think it's
seriously
such a character.
And, the longevity of it is impressive, too, because this game came out before either of us were born, but I've played it at some point. Luis, I'm guessing you may have played it at some point as well.
Right, yeah.
You're like, I haven't, but I don't want to sound like a loser right now.
I have, Kurt. I have, please.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
You build up to other video games starting from the very first one. How do you think I got so good at Halo 3?
That's true. The sacred texts.
That's true. I have to master Super Mario, and then I can move on to other stuff.
So all that to say, this is a very big game, and as early as 2003, players began uploading Super Mario 64 speedruns to speedrunning websites. Luis, you probably know this, but speedrunning is when you try to race to beat the game as fast as possible, so people are competing for the fastest time, the quote-unquote world record. Now, fast forward down the road to 2013, and speedrunning Mario 64 has kind of grown in popularity along with the internet, so at this point, it's extremely competitive. After 10 years, it's gotten pretty hard to beat the world record time, so new world record times are few and far between and usually only improve on the previous time by a few seconds.
Okay.
One thing that is very helpful at this point is glitches. Some examples of some glitches that were commonly used in Mario 64 are passing through walls or floors, or picking up items through walls, or making impossibly fast jumps. And I want to be clear what I'm talking about here. These are not accidental glitches. I'm talking about speedrunners learning how to intentionally exploit bugs in the game in order to save time, time when they're trying to beat it.
They're intentionally breaking the machine to come out the other end victorious.
Yeah, they're just finding some alternative strategies. Now, in 2013, it had become common for speedrunners to live stream themselves racing on the new streaming platform Twitch. So this is when two speedrunners would simultaneously both try to beat Mario 64 as fast as possible, and people would tune in to watch this live. Sometimes this would actually lead to new world records happening live, so it can actually be a somewhat exciting process. Now, on September 21st, 2013, there was a speedrun race taking place between two speedrunners named Midboss and Dota_Teabag. Around 26 minutes into the speedrun, Dota Teabag was climbing a tall clock tower on a level called Tick-Tock Clock when suddenly Mario flew into the air all the way through the ceiling up to the top of the tower. And Dota Teabag was extremely confused by this. Of course, his reaction was recorded live, but he finished the speedrun. He got a good time, but it wasn't a world record because he was too slow in some other parts of the game. But more importantly, after this, a clip of the glitch goes viral and other speedrunners really want to know how Dota Teabag basically teleported through the whole clock tower. The weird part is that Dota Teabag says he doesn't know, and no one else can figure it out or recreate the glitch. The mystery around this continues to grow to the point where another speedrunner named Panenkoek 2012 offered a $1,000 bounty to anyone who could replicate the glitch.
What was his name?
Panenkoek 2012.
Okay, interesting.
You might be wondering now, Luis, why are people so desperate to figure this out to the point where, someone would put up $1,000 of real money? So not only would this one specific glitch save a lot of time, but because no one can figure out how it works, that means that there may be other undiscovered glitches. Because as I said before, when we're talking about glitches, we're talking about a known bug and people are exploiting the game in a way that they understand what they're doing.
Right.
No one understands how this happened. So this means that there could be a whole new strategy to be discovered in this super competitive race for the world record.
And at this point, it's a nearly 20-year-old game, too. So, people are scrambling to figure out new things. Everyone thinks that everything has been discovered, but no. There's still yet more to see in Super Mario.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, despite this level of interest, years would go on and no one was able to replicate the glitch. People even would use these things called emulators to match Mario's exact movements in the game and button inputs when the glitch occurred, but still were unable to recreate it, which is especially baffling. The mystery would go unsolved all the way until 2021.
Whoa.
And when the answer was finally revealed, instead of being something that was helpful, it was more just sort of terrifying. Okay, so in order to tell you this explanation, Luis, I've got to explain two sort of complicated things, all right? But I promise you the payoff is going to be worth it, okay? So deep breath.
Okay.
Time to learn, okay? You ready? Don't hold it in. Let the breath out.
Oh, okay. Thank God.
Okay, thing number one, binary code. You're probably familiar with this. Binary code is a code made of different combinations of zeros and ones, and it's used by computers to process and store information. So basically different devices that compute or store data think, quote unquote, in binary code. It's kind of a simplistic way of putting it. So when you click on an episode of our podcast, audience members, your device gets told something like a long string of 011111011.
It first asks you why.
Why do you want to listen to the Seal Hunter episode for the 5th time? What are you going to gain out of it?
Why are you listening about dongs made out of bamboo? Come on.
But anyway, it gets this long string of binary, and then it understands, okay, you want this audio file and the graphics and whatever else, blah, blah, blah. Now, what happens on a small scale in this process is that various parts of a computer have these sensitive nodes that send either a charge of electricity or no charge. And then the computer interprets this as either a 0 or 1. So if you put a bunch of nodes together, you have a bunch of zeros and ones together. This makes an entire binary sequence. This is how information gets passed around a computer, okay?
Okay.
Now, thing number two, and I'm guessing you haven't heard of this one before, Luis. Cosmic rays. Does that catch you off guard somehow? What were you expecting me to say?
I don't know. I thought you were going to say something more related to a computer, but no, all of a sudden we're going to space. That's awesome.
Just wait. We're going to get back to it, okay? So cosmic rays are clusters of high energy particles that shoot through space at the speed of light.
Oh my goodness.
They can originate either from the sun or from somewhere outside our solar system or even outside our galaxy. You can basically think of them as these invisible laser beams because they're shooting through space at the speed of light.
Maybe even through you right now.
Look out. Now, when cosmic rays hit Earth's atmosphere, they break apart into protons and neutrons and then rain down onto the Earth. Should one of these protons or neutrons happen to land directly on a sensitive node, it will reverse the charge, which would then send the opposite number to the computer. So if it was sending a 0, it instead sends a 1. If it was sending a 1, it instead sends a 0. When this happens, this is called a bit flip. And Luis, you might be wondering, how dangerous is this exactly? Because this seems like a a odd thing to occur. Picture it like this, okay? Imagine you're driving a car. There's a lot of numbers involved here. There's the speed you're traveling, there's how much gas you have, which way the car is facing, the dimensions of the car,
whether or not I've been drinking,
your blood alcohol content level. Now, imagine if you were driving and one of these numbers randomly changed to a different number. That could have quite devastating consequences.
Yeah.
When this happens, this is called a single event upset. Okay, so this is a little brief history of single event upsets. In 1972, a satellite lost connection for 96 seconds after it was hit with a cosmic ray. Cosmic rays can do this in space if they hit a sensitive node. In 2003, in a local election in Belgium, candidate Maria Vindevogel received an extra 4,096 votes after a single event upset occurred in the voting systems.
Right.
On October 7th, 2008, Qantas Flight 72 was flying at 37,000 feet when it was struck by a charged particle, causing incorrect data to be sent to the plane's navigation system. This caused the plane to immediately severely nosedive, leading to over 100 injuries to the passengers and crew.
Oh, God.
And finally, on September 21st, 2013, a charged particle struck a sensitive node on Dota Teabag's N64, changing a 0 to a 1. And the string of binary that this 0 that changed to a 1 was in was related to the current height that Mario was at. So there was basically a long number that represented Mario's current height. Within that number, a 5 was changed to a 4, which happened to be close enough to the correct height for Mario to be standing at the top of the tower, so the game warped Mario to the top of the tower instantly.
No way. Whoa.
In 2021, Panin Koek 2012 himself, the guy who put up the original bounty, proved that a single event upset was responsible for the glitch by using a program to manually flip that bit at the exact right time, recreating the same glitch. So was there a new strategy finally out of all this? You could probably guess no, because it seems like single event upsets are extremely rare. It's actually difficult to say how rare they are because it's hard to confirm after the fact. In fact, in the history I was telling you, some of these cases was whereas like they ruled out every single possibility except a single event upset. But there's sometimes no way to confirm for sure after the fact. But more importantly, a proton or neutron hitting the exact right node at the exact right time while playing Mario 64 is so unlikely that I personally feel pretty confident saying it will never happen again in human history. Also, interestingly, this is believed to be the only known case of a single event upset producing a positive outcome. So they went looking for like, what's a new speedrun strategy, and got like, impending doom is raining down on you invisibly at all times.
I feel like that's one of the better scenarios that you could get. If anything, a little like what's a little existential crisis after you beat the ice level in Mario 64?
That's true. What is life without a little existential crisis?
Right. I mean, that ice level is the same one where you're able to grab a penguin and throw it off a ledge right in front of its mother, mind you. Now, maybe we are actually supposed to feel a little existential crisis after playing God as Italian plumber, but that's just my thought.
Now, I'm interested that you say you are able to murder the baby penguin, because of course this implies that if you played the game and never tried to, you wouldn't know that information. I assume that it's not necessary to the plot. Like, you don't have to kill the baby penguin to beat the game. Or is this a speedrun strat?
No, it's actually the opposite of a speedrun strat, but in my brain you have to do it. Oh, Kurt, please, I always grab the baby penguin and throw it off a ledge. Who do you think I am? But listen, that's beyond the point. What we're talking about here is feeling small in relation to the universe by trying to save Princess Peach from devastation.
That's so true.
And I think that's beautiful. Kurt.
It really is.
So,
it really
quick question, Kurt. In your own criteria, does this type of event count as a glitch?
Does it count as a glitch?
Right, because are you purposefully exploiting the game? If this were just to happen to you, like, can we consider this as a glitchless run if it happens to you, or no?
No, because if it's an accidental glitch, it still rules you out, unfortunately.
An accidental glitch is still a glitch? Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were the glitch police. Come on, Kurt.
No, this is actually just speedrun policy, Luis. I'm sorry that you're not as internet savvy as me. You're not in deep on the Mario 64 speedrun community like I am.
Yes.
Me and my Mario 64 speedrun homies.
I'm talking to the official bookkeeper of Mario 64 speedruns.
Panin Koek is a listener of this pod. Shout out Panin Koek.
Oh man, I don't know, Kurt. Yeah, I feel like you're making me believe in something. I don't know if miracles, but certainly something. You're making me believe in the fact that the speedrun community needs to chill out. Oh man, that's wild. These are difficult things to happen, but I'm glad they did. It really makes you feel special about our world. And the good part, the best part about this, Kurt, is that regardless of which story is true, something incredible just happened. Regardless, right? There's no downside to any story being fake or any story being true. And if the Mario story is fake, that just means that congratulations, speedrunning community. There's still a chance for you.
Well, I do want to say, out of interest, another unifying theme to the story, aside from the miracles, is that, interestingly, both of these stories I felt like just made me think of our friendship, Luis. Not to get too deep on you here, but there's a few video games that we played together in our time. I was kind of thinking actually about how we would be really bad speedrunners because we're on like an ignorance is bliss run. We're like, how quickly can we get obsessed with like the stupidest thing in this game that is the furthest from like what we're supposed to be doing?
That's true.
But I was like, if there was some random glitch caused by a laser beam from outer space, we totally would be like all in on trying to figure that out for sure.
We actually are the opposite of speedrunners. We try to take as long as we can with the game. Try to beat a record of how long we can take before beating a level.
And, I also thought about you when I was learning about the Angel Glow story, because I thought about kind of the intersection of how there's science and small town lore and religion, and sometimes they bundle together into this way where it makes a story that has a mystery that sometimes gets answered, but sometimes it's just really hard to tell, which of these sides it came from and what the truth is behind all of it, So that makes me very happy to be able to tell you these stories finally.
It feels nice. And that second story also includes the Civil War, which I've got a quick revelation to all of our, for all of our non-guy audience. You familiar how the Roman Empire is something that the guys think about all the time? Just second to the Roman Empire, I believe it's the Civil War and then the Second World War. So, this one goes out to all of you Civil War fanatics. I'm one of you talking to you directly. Anyway, I digress. Well, that's nice, Kurt. I'm glad you thought of me. That makes me happy. Anyone listening cannot see this, but I am fully blushing. So thank you for this.
Feeling vulnerable, are you?
Oh, yeah. When am I not? Well, with that, Kurt, it is time for me to start getting to reaching certain conclusions. So let's move to our least favorite part of the show, the first one of the season.
Yeah.
It is time for deliberation.
So, Luis, I told you about a couple miracles today, or maybe not miracles, I guess, depending on how you look at it. But the first was the miracle of the Angel's Glow, where Civil War soldiers found their wounds glowing, and later this was discovered to likely be due to a bioluminescent bacteria.
Yeah.
And then I told you the miracle of Dota Teabag, the man who happened to have his N64 in the right place at the right time to get struck with a space laser beam, uncovering maybe a new speedrunning strategy, but more likely just one of the most bizarre coincidences in modern history. What do you think?
Oh, Kurt, lots to think about. So I think I'm going to keep it simple today. I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm going to go story by story. Let's start with the Civil War. Now, I really do believe that Shiloh, where's Shiloh, Mississippi?
Tennessee.
All right, so Shiloh is in Tennessee. I like to believe in the fact that somewhere in a field in Tennessee, there exists a bacteria that no one has ever seen before, and it's very localized, not just to this place, but also this specific battlefield. I find that really, really fun.
No, it's not. That's not the only place in the world that it is.
Oh, come on, Kurt.
I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but
get off it.
I mean, this is just the only time that it's been recognized on humans, because generally the human body temperature is too hot for it to get in there.
I see.
Sorry, look, I'm just trying to do good journalism work and stick to the truth here, okay, Luis? There's P-luminescence all over this bad boy.
It's gonna be really ironic, a really ironic soundbite whenever this turns out to be false. Now, I really enjoy that, but to that, I think that if we know about this and we finally broke, I don't know, we found out the reason behind this sort of natural happenstance, then why haven't we exploited it more? That's what we do as humans. We find something that's interesting and we exploit it to death.
Well, it's not better than antibiotics.
Well, I understand.
But if you don't have antibiotics, it's good.
But why can't I go to a hospital and give me the fun blue light that cures my wounds slowly?
You just want to glow?
Yes, Kurt. Do you don't? Oh my God.
You're like, I will keep contracting strep throat until you give me the glowy bacteria. Please.
I will purposefully give myself paper cuts just so I can have glowing blue hands. Like, just imagine some P luminescence as part of aftershave. You cut yourself while shaving, and now you've got a blue beard. That's cool.
Oh.
Listen, I'm thinking ahead. So I don't know. That's kind of what's holding me back in this specific story. Those very specific details of having to be near hypothermia in order for it to start glowing. I don't know. I think it's too unique, but maybe I'm just not thinking in a magical way. Now, moving on to Super Mario
64.
Super Mario 64, excuse
Thank
me.
you.
Yeah, sorry.
Blessed be his name.
Blessed, praise be. Now, Super Mario 64, I really like this story, and you know I enjoy speedrunning a lot. I really do sit down and watch speedrunning videos in my off times because I'm a really cool guy.
Were you in the live stream speedrun races in 2013?
I unfortunately was not, Kurt. I was doing other cool guy stuff in 2013, like not having friends. It was nice. It was a good time. Now, I trust this story a lot. I really do. I actually had heard before about the, Swedish
Belgium
election that was, the Belgium election. I had heard of an election that was rigged due to cosmic rays. So I'm swayed to believe this story. But there's something that, again, holds me back, and you're going to laugh at me. But the names of these gamers, Kurt. Or is it Catch and Handle? Where's Pan and Handle?
Mid-Boss and Dota_Teabag are boys.
Right, Dota Teabag, and then Collect and Handle 2012?
Pan and Coec 2012.
These are fun names, and I really appreciate them. And you know, having Dota Teabag on there really makes everything shine. But these seem a little too forced. These seems like you went to a video game name generator and you came out with these. Because sometimes speedrunners have very short names like, I don't know, this is Bubby or Betwixt. Some random stuff like that. I'm revealing maybe a little too much of the information that I have in my brain. For all of those of you listening that still think I'm a cool guy, keep that in mind while I'm saying these things.
Pan and Coec 2012 is listening to this right now like, so you think the name is stupid. That's what you're saying. This isn't my opinion, Panon. This isn't me.
This is not me speaking. This is someone else.
This doesn't represent my viewpoints towards Pan and Coec.
me retweeting this does not represent my view. Now, again, that's for some reason, Kurt. That's the only thing that I'm getting held up in. And it sounds funny, but I don't know. But I'm going to take a quick shot in the dark, Kurt, because I really do trust the idea of cosmic rays interfering with a world record and people taking 10 years of not knowing what the hell is going on just to come to the conclusion that there's nothing they can do about it. That's frankly a little cathartic, and again goes to show just how the world is sometimes.
It does feel, the fact that the bounty was put up and then never collected because the person who put up the bounty ended up answering the question, which was basically a meaningless answer.
Right.
That does feel very true to history, kind of fading out.
That's
not an exciting ending.
Thank you for helping me out. Yeah, it's almost like oh shoot, we did it. What do we do with this information? Right? Which, funny enough, is the same thing as we do with P luminescence.
True.
We found out this exists. Now what do we do?
We got to combine this. We need the cosmic rays to strike the P luminescence.
Hold on.
They said I was mad at the university, Luis.
That soon they'll see. Soon I'll be the one laughing. I'll show them. I'll show all of them. But with that, Kurt, I think I'm going to trust my gut right now. I'm going to say that Super Mario 64 being affected by cosmic rays is the more likely answer in this situation.
All right. We are trusting Luis's gut and not trusting the bacteria-ridden guts of nematodes. Ugh. Luis, this is the first deliberation of season 3 here. Tell me, is this going to set a tone for the season, whether you get it or not, or is this just one more deliberation in an ocean of deliberations?
Listen, Kurt, I already feel really good that I fooled you with my fun fast fact. So, just give it to me, man. Give it to me straight.
Well, you got it, baby.
Oh!
You got it. Dota Teabag is, in fact, a real gamer name, as is Mid-Boss, as is Pan and Coec 2012.
Dota Teabag, this episode's dedicated to you and you alone. Oh, hell yeah. Wherever you are, Dota Teabag, we appreciate you.
So, first, let me tell you about the Cosmic Rays story here. Of course, this story is all true. It is interesting, I was talking about that it's difficult to decipher sometimes after the fact, was this a single upset event or not? So, there's really a big question mark on how often this is happening and how detrimental it generally is, because it could be the case that, maybe it happens and your phone malfunctions for a second, but then it fixes itself.
Right,
or maybe, when your laptop randomly died, that was what happened. But also, So, no, it's hard to measure this after the fact. So this could be a thing that like maybe shows up every so often and could be significantly catastrophic, or it could be we're just constantly getting rained on by charged particles we don't see, and it mostly doesn't matter. Either way, it makes my skin crawl a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it's kind of terrifying. It is kind of terrifying.
Now, let me go on to the angel glow P luminescent story. So, Luis, I think that it's a sign that you've been doing this podcast a long time that you're like, my truth lie sensor detector smoke mirrors meter senses are tingling on this story, because this one is a little bit of a weird one. I'll tell you, okay? So, here's the truth from this story, all right? The information I told you about P luminescence is true as far as that it's a bacteria, lives in the guts of nematodes, they get into insect larvae, they vomit it up, it glows, blah, blah, blah.
Wait, so it's a real name?
It's a real name.
I thought the name was made up.
Nope. Photor habitus luminescens. You think I would force myself to say that so many times?
Right.
Additionally, the information I told you about Civil War soldiers dying from illnesses, amputations, and Menet bullets, etc. is all true. I would never lie to you about the casualty statistics of the Mexican-American War, so obviously that is all true. I would never mention false information in that arena. Now, here's where we get to the shenanigans, okay? If you Google the story of Angel's Glow, you will find endless, and I mean really, really endless results telling you the following story is factually true, okay? That while touring Shiloh battlefield, 17-year-old high schooler Bill Martin and his friend Jonathan Curtis learned the story of the Angel's Glow from the Civil War battle, and by coincidence, Bill's mother Phyllis was a microbiologist. She encouraged the boys to investigate the source of this glow, and then Bill and Jonathan went on to discover the bacteria, P. luminescens, blah, 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 okay? However, if you decide to do a little journalism work and call the Shiloh National Military Park to ask some specific questions about Angel's Glow, a very tired-sounding park ranger will inform you that there is no mention of Angel's Glow in any accounts from any Civil War soldiers or any civilians who witnessed the battle. And try as I might, I could not disprove this. In fact, I could not find any mention of Angel's Glow earlier than 2001, which is the same year that Bill Martin allegedly toured the Shiloh battlefield. So honestly, I don't really know what the source of this story is. I think that, from the little I can tell, it seems like Bill Martin did get told this story and like he was genuinely investigating this, but I really don't know where this came from. But it definitely was not a story that came out of the Civil War. It's some modern urban legend.
That's so cool. Wow, I cannot believe you used the resources available to you by the U.S. taxpayer dollar.
I had a lot of free time over Christmas break,
Yeah. Oh, good. That's incredible. Do you remember the park ranger's name?
No, I don't. Honestly, he seemed really annoyed to be explaining this for the millionth time. So I had like a list of questions, and after the first one, he was like, "This is not a thing." I was like, "Well, I guess that answers all of them. Thank you for your time. Goodbye."
No follow-up.
I'll let you get back to it.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
This was a fun one to do, too, because interestingly, I was at first trying to research the story of the Angel's Glow to tell you it's a true story, and then kind of in the middle of it ran into that this is not a true story. So I also changed some other parts so that in case you had heard some details, there wouldn't be any overlap of like you thought this was a true story because you'd heard it before. But this was fun because one of the things I thought about when we were originally thinking about what do we want our podcast to be, should we do a podcast, is this another stupid idea we're going to forget after this weekend, was it would be fun to not only have some true stories that are super unbelievable, but some stories that are believed to be true that people got wrong about history or just like common urban legends. Because I think that in order to truly love the bizarre and randomness of history, you also have to be like a really absolutionist purist about separating truth from lies. Of that, like, I don't want any stories that I don't know to be true rattling around in my head, because the truth is so much better when you dig down and find it, because you'll never come up with something as weird as what really happened, like a particle from space struck Dota Teabag's N64, causing people to put up $1,000 in a 10-year long search for something that was never going to happen.
That's so good. Oh, that's so good. Wow. Great stories, Kurt. My goodness, those were really fun.
Thank you.
Very
so
fun.
All that said and done, Luis, are you believing any more in miracles? I mean, that cosmic particle is pretty weird to have bopped in there at the exact right time and changed the exact right number. Is Dota Teabag blessed?
The only miracle that I'm believing right now is the fact that I got this story right, Kurt.
That's
which
true.
is a good omen for going forward. And that's the excitement that I want to be feeling and carrying on for for the rest of the season. Good start, I'm saying.
Yeah, and you came into it swinging. Like I said, you came in fully confident, but that is 1 point for you, still 0 for me on the leaderboard. So I guess that's the first little edge for you. But honestly, I'm just so excited to be competing again now that we get to do this from, like I said, clean slate from the start. I'm not worried about it. I'm excited to see what you bring me next episode.
Yeah, give it a couple of weeks. We're going to be at each other's throats.
Oh, yeah. The bloodlust is rising for sure. But despite all that, hope everyone else enjoyed. If you enjoyed listening, feel free to check out some extra content on our social medias. We're on Instagram at UnbelievablePod and Twitter at UnbelievablePC.
And also, now, if you are in Chicago, you can listen to us through the Chicago airwaves at 88.7 FM WLUW. You can hear us every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. in case you have nothing to do that day.
Yeah. Leave us a review. Tell your friends and family. Everything helps.
And remember, everyone, if you ever trip and fall in the Shiloh battlefield, scrape a lot of dirt on there. It might just start glowing blue.
That's true. And then write about it online. You'll be famous.
See ya.
Bye.